Now, the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, has won the parliamentary seats in the Senate West constituency in the Bono East region, following the counting of one outstanding polling station. We know that they won in that polling station, but, you know, the collation, the entire collation of the constituency saw them win by a slim margin of 16. So they get to retain the seat. What this means is that the NPP has 137 and the NDC also has got 137 in Parliament. Do we have a clear majority with what we have? There is an independent candidate who has said that he will be sitting on the side of the NPP. But can we say we have a majority and a minority in Parliament, at least in the 8th Parliament with what we have, even though there are claims that some of the seats will be challenged? But for now, this is what has been declared by the Electoral Commission. Let's have a conversation with a man who is very familiar with our parliament and other parliaments on the continent. Dr. Rashid Draman is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. There you are. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll also have a legal practitioner, Mr. Martin Pebu, join us in the course of this conversation. But Dr. Draman, we seem to have a very interesting parliament in the 8th Parliament next year. Have we had anything close to this? 137, equal numbers representing both major political parties?
No, Mamavi, we haven't had this before, especially for me, since I've been monitoring and working with our parliament 20 years and counting now. We've never come near anything like this. So, as you said, the 8th Parliament is going to be a very, very interesting one.
When people reflect on, you know, where we are, where we seem to be today, they bring back events of 1979. And there is a perception that there could be a gridlock in our governance system. I don't know where you stand on this. What do you foresee?
Yes, I foresee some serious gridlock if the two parties are not able to resolve the current the current electoral differences and the challenges that has bedeviled this country since December 7th. If we wake up and this electoral dispute is resolved, then perhaps we could say, in the interest of the two parties, in their own interests or their self-preservation, they would have to look at the interests of all of us and find ways of compromising and dialoguing and working together. The outcome of December 7th clearly shows that, you know, Ghanaians are not happy with the NPP, and neither are they happy with the NDC. So what this suggests is that Ghanaians want to see the two parties working together in our interests. And I believe that the outcome that we have presents that opportunity, except for the fact that we still have these lingering electoral disputes. And those could either make room for dialogue or destroy whatever possibility of dialogue that there could be. Because if we continue in this state, in a situation where still the NDC does not recognize the outcome of the election, particularly at the presidential level. I mean, this spills over to Parliament, and it presupposes that we are going to have the NDC side, by extension, perhaps not recognizing the NPP, particularly the legislative agenda, which most of the time comes from the executive. So we are in for some interesting times.
So this hang parliament that we have, is there any on the continent that you've seen?
Yes. The one that is interesting and that comes close, perhaps, is what we are currently experiencing in the Gambia. But I mean, the Gambia is completely different. There was a coalition that was put together to get rid of Yahya Jammeh, and then halfway through, the coalition fell apart, and then all the parties that came together went on their own, and the president set up his own party and won, I think, 1 or 2 seats in by-elections. So you have a president that sits in the State House in Banjul, and then he has only 2 seats in Parliament. But like I said, that was a coalition and so on, and we remember the history. They had to come together to get rid of Yahya Jammeh and so on and so forth. Other than that, I think I haven't seen anything close to this, except also maybe in Kenya many years ago when they had a serious electoral dispute that led to some conflicts, and then they had to find ways, the 2 sides, to work together. But a real hung parliament where seats are divided right in the middle, I have never seen anything like this before.
So what would we be referring to both parties then? Because we can't, in the 8th Parliament, if it stays the same, if it stays this way, we can't say majority leader, minority leader, correct?
Yes, I think it's going to be very difficult, unless maybe there are some clauses in the Constitution, and I'm not a lawyer, so I might not be able to speak to that. Maybe the lawyer that you have joining us shortly might be able to speak to that. It's going to be very interesting. I don't know who to call majority leader, and I don't know who to call minority leader if the seats remain this way. I mean, except to say that, you know, if it is true that the kingmaker, if I could call him that way, the former MP, if it is true that he is going to be joining and voting with the NPP, then at least they have a 1-seat majority when it comes to voting, but not when it comes to seats. Because once he says that he's NPP, then that same kind of situation that befell him before we went to vote, that is when he was expelled from Parliament. I think that article will be triggered again, and then he will lose his seat. So for now, he would, I mean, based on what we have read in the media, he says he'll be voting and sitting with the NPP. So in that case, they have a 1-person majority. I don't know what that means constitutionally. I don't know what that means based on the law.
So how about how Parliament itself refers to the House, majority, minority? Wouldn't there be some kind of conflict?
I don't understand your question.
So, you know, in parliaments, per their own standing orders, there's a minority side and there is a majority side.
Majority.
There wasn't room for what we are experiencing today.
Yes, indeed. I think the premise of our Constitution, again, that's what I'm saying. Perhaps the lawyers would have to look at the Constitution carefully. Sometimes there are some hidden clauses, and then sometimes maybe some different interpretations. But I think our premise of the Constitution did not foresee this, and even perhaps I'm yet to carefully look at the standing orders. But I have seen a situation where in some countries, for instance, recently we're doing some work in Sierra Leone and looking at their standing orders. They went to elections recently, and all of a sudden, there were so many parties in parliament, and then they don't have a coalition. So you talk to some of the smaller parties, they say, no, these standing orders are not, meant for this kind of parliament. They were meant for a parliament where there was a clear majority and minority. Because now we don't know what to call ourselves. We the smaller parties. And I think if you look at our situation right now, we might be facing the same thing. When you look at the Constitution, as well as when you look at the standing orders, the Bible of our Parliament. But for me, Mama V, I think what what is interesting is how maybe who leads Parliament as Speaker, and who chair various committees of Parliament. That is what I think is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, what is also, I guess, for those of us who are watching, we're kind of curious. So who nominates, will the two sides nominate a speaker or somebody to be speaker for the entire house to vote for them to decide which one will become speaker?
Yes, Article 95 of the Constitution says, the a speaker will be selected from amongst people who are qualified to be members of Parliament, and I think the Constitution is clear about who is qualified to be a member of Parliament. And so, over the years, what we have seen is that on the eve, the midnight of January 6th, leading to January 7th, every 4 years, we've seen situations where, the majority, the group that has a majority in Parliament will propose a candidate, and then, if you like, for the I don't know, I'm just trying to find a word. The other side, the minority side, would also propose a candidate, but I think that is just symbolical, because at the end of the day, when the votes are counted, usually, it's a given that the majority side will be the one that will get the chance to elect or to select the speaker. Now, if you look at what is happening now, if the numbers remain the same, barring all the challenges and the disputes that we have in court, if the numbers remain the same, and if it's indeed true that the Formula MP is going to be voting with the NPP, then when it comes down to the wire, when it comes down to counting the numbers to see which side has more numbers in terms of the candidates that are put forward for speaker, I suspect that the NPP would have that advantage. Now, what might happen? Is that perhaps maybe this will be the beginning of the dialogue and the compromise that our president spoke about when he delivered his victory speech. We would have perhaps a situation where, maybe the NDC would say, okay, let's come together and let's see, maybe the NPP can take the position of the speaker, and then we would take all the leadership of the various committees. I'm just speculating, Mama B, that this will be perhaps the beginning of the dialogue and compromise that we are likely to see in the sixth parliament. In the eighth parliament, except if, and I don't know whether this is possible, Mama V, that we can resolve all these electoral disputes, particularly the seats that are currently in contention, before the night of January 6th.
Okay.
I suspect that is not possible, because the wheels of justice in this country sometimes grind very, very slowly.
That sounds, listening to you, sounds a bit complicated, but we have our lawyer joining us, Mr. Martin Peeble, also joins us on this conversation. A very good morning to you, Mr. Peeble. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Mama V.
Great.
Morning.
So yesterday you're also trying to figure out a few things. What have you found now? Is there room in our constitution, in our laws, for what we're witnessing today with 137 NPP, 137 NDC in Parliament?
Yes, largely so. To the extent that the MP for Fomina is already shown his hands, it appears that even though on paper we may appear to have our own version of a hung parliament, and we'll come to the meaning of a hung parliament in this context, because this kind of situation in Ghana is not the same as what the UK people call the hung parliament. Okay, yeah, but so let's concentrate on ours now. So though both parties have 137 each, to the extent that Honorable Isiama is indicated that he will largely go with the NPP, it means that it's basically academic. When it comes to the vote, he will vote with the NPP and they are going to take the speaker position. Okay? Yes, if his past statements are anything to go by. Because, Mamavi, in the standing orders of Parliament, you're looking at from Order 8 onwards, the vote on the speaker is by simple majority. So if Honorable Isiama goes with NPP and they get 138 votes, they take the position of speaker. No qualms about that. They say,
okay.
Yes. Then let's make this, let's educate viewers on the issue of the hung parliament. It's important. Now, the classical definition of a hung parliament is not what we have in Ghana. You see, the hung parliament in the UK, the Westminster system, arises when the majority in parliament, they have the right to nominate a prime minister, have the prime minister position. But ours, we have a mix, a hybrid system. We're operating the Westminster and the presidential system. So you know that we vote for our president separately. We don't have a prime minister. So the issue of hung parliament classically doesn't apply. Okay? But to the extent that the work in parliament also depends on votes of majority and minority, then in that extent, well, we can use the term hung parliament loosely.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So how would we, and I asked Dr. Rashid Draman, who is also with us on this conversation, so perhaps I could ask you, how would we refer to both sides? We can't say majority, minority.
Yes, the so I'll go with him that as he's drawing on experience from other countries, that perhaps to that extent we should be looking at amending the standing orders to create for such a situation.
Stay with me, Mr. Martin Peeble. Dr. Rashid Draman, can these two parties, especially looking at the outcome of this election, considering the NDC has not considered, and they say that this was a flawed election that they will not accept, can they seriously work together if we're going with the outcome of 137 each in Parliament?
Yes, I mean, if the elections were decided clearly on December 7th, then this was a situation that most of us, particularly those who work very closely with parliaments, were hoping to see in most parliaments on the continent, where electoral outcomes force parties to work together and force them to ensure that they do their work very well, they do oversight very well, and don't leave oversight to counting votes and the majority having its way and minority just having its say and so on. But elections have not been, if you ask the NDC, as you rightly said, the elections for them have not been decided yet. So because of that, this suspicion and this kind of position that they hold right now would find its way to Parliament. And in that case, I foresee a lot of difficulties in terms of they coming together and working together. But like I was saying earlier, our president said, look, what Ghanaians did on December 7 just simply says that this is the time for us to work together, this is the time for dialogue and so on. So I would say the dialogue and the working together starts right now. I mean, countries have faced difficulties that are, I think, worse than what we are facing now. And I think they found ways, I mean, there are so many examples on the continent. They found ways of settling those differences. We saw in Kenya one time when Uhuru Kenyatta and what do you call him, the opposition leader, I mean, were forced to work together and share power. And they created some positions that were not in the constitution, but in the interest of bringing the country together and getting the country to move on and so on and so forth. I don't know whether we are there yet, whether some of the compromises and dialogue and so on would result in things like this in terms of trying to find a way to share power. Particularly, perhaps, maybe like I was saying, Mama V, maybe because we don't have a position of a prime minister in this country and so on and so forth, the sharing of power perhaps could be in Parliament, where, as I said earlier, we could, I mean, have the NPP take the speakership, and then maybe the rest of the positions are held by the NDC. I mean, so that way, you know, there is good faith, and then you could find them coming together to work together.
Okay.
In our.
Okay, Mr. Martin Pebo, what do you make of this sharing of power idea in Parliament? Hello, Mr. Pebo, are you still with us?
His microphone is off.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Mr. Pebo.
Yeah, Dr. Draman's suggestion here, it sounds very interesting, but knowing the way we do our politics, it's difficult to see how they would, that's the NPP would readily relinquish leadership of the committees and all those to the NDC. And it's difficult because, you know, by nature, we don't like sharing. I mean, so far from our experience in the Fourth Republic, we like to do some token appointments here and there, but we haven't established power sharing as an integral part of our system. So from the way I see it, I'd rather wait. Maybe because this time round they are at par, perhaps this will be the beginning. But our history has not given me comfort that the NPP will be willing to relinquish the leadership of the committees and those to the NDC.
And Mr. Draman, you know, I've heard some people say, for instance, look at what happened with Martin Amidu. This government will be minded by, you know, just this recent history, and that will guide its going forward in terms of how it wants to share its power.
Well, I mean, if you talk about, yes, I mean, we've had the General Secretary of the NPP, I mean, in the days when the Martin Amidu incident happened, we had him talk on behalf of the party to say what happened with Martin Amidu closes the door for, I mean, this kind of bringing other people on board in terms of trying to share power, if you like, if you can describe it that way. But here, I think there is a constitutionally induced, if you like, situation where it's not like there is. I mean, the MPP.
There is no option. Is that what you want to say?
Yes, I mean that's what I'm trying to say, because unless maybe somebody tells me we can describe one and the NDC as majority and the MPP as minority, then if that is clear, I mean, if there is some hidden article somewhere that says that because the Fomina MP is going to be sitting and voting with them, if constitutionally, legally, if that makes the MPP the majority, then sure, there is no discussion. Other than that, I think they are going to be forced to try and find a way, one way or the other, to share power. I mean, even if we don't have a history of sharing power, as Mr. Pebu has said, in this country.
Yeah. So why don't we just try and clarify that, Martin Pebu, if you can still hear me. The fact that the Fomina MP elect now has decided to vote and sit with the NPP in Parliament, it doesn't give them 138 in terms of numbers to form a majority in Parliament, does it?
Yeah, you see, for when it comes to the business, you know, a lot of the business is when they take the vote is by majority. So that if they vote, so like we mentioned the typical example of election of the speaker, simple majority, they will carry the vote. So for all those businesses that require the simple majority, they vote and then they carry the day. So it's beyond that. And with those ones that require two-thirds, you see that they are not even things that arise very often. You say, so perhaps I think the best at this stage is to wait and see. Yeah, wait and see. I think that would be the best solution at this stage.
As in, we wait and see how Parliament itself would carry this through?
Yes. Because as I said, to the extent that this is new to us, they themselves, now they'll begin to think through. Okay? So when they think through, sure, you know, there's this eminent or salient principle that even the courts use, that Parliament is master of its own procedures. Okay? Parliament is master of its own procedures. So now that this situation has arisen, let's see how they would sit down and fashion ways to come out of it. I hesitate to jump ahead and think that, oh, by all means, they'll be compelled to share. Let's see how the principle that Parliament is master of its own procedures will come to play.
Okay. But here's my little argument, though. The Fomina MP-elect is not a member of the NPP. He will not be in Parliament as a member of the NPP. If that happens, then there has to be a by-election so that he can come back on the ticket of the NPP. So technically, NPP has 137. It's only when there are cases where they have to vote that he would vote with them, and then they will get the numbers. So they don't have a majority in the sense of a majority political party in Parliament, correct? Mr. Pebu? Okay, I think we just lost the connection to him. But Dr. Rashid Draman, what do you make of, you know, the last comments by Mr. Pebu that Parliament is a master of its own laws and rules, so they can fix this?
Yes, indeed. I mean, it is a master of its own rules. But you see, right now, we have a situation on our hands. And what we want as a country is how to come out of this situation, not how to dig in and create further conflict and further confusion. So if even when they are going to alter their rules and try to find a workable solution, I would suspect that in the interest of the situation that we have on our hands, they would find a way to ensure that, you know, there is some kind of sharing, some kind of compromise, some give and take between the two parties. Because like you said, I mean, legally speaking, if we look at the numbers, I mean, the two parties are at par. I mean, they are at par, and that's how we can describe it right now. And if they have to look at their own rules and have to try and find a way to work together, I guess it just simply means that one party will take something and the other party will take something. But not, I mean, finding, master of their own rules in this case, if it produces an outcome where everything is taken by one side, then I think it further deepens the challenges that we have, and then it's going to make even the 8th Parliament more complicated.
So, Dr. Draman, would the 7th Parliament make decisions and try and resolve the issues for the 8th Parliament? Is that allowed?
No. I think, well, I mean, to the extent that I know, that is not allowed. The 7th Parliament cannot make decisions, unless maybe we want to, they want to quickly change the constitution and come up with some law that would guide future parliaments. But to say we are deciding this and this is how the 8th Parliament is going to look like, that again, I don't think that's possible. I mean, unless maybe the lawyers think that there is some room for that.
But what would be your recommendation? I mean, if you were to give an advice, you foresee what is likely to happen in the 8th Parliament. This is an existing parliament. Would you advise that they alter certain things so that things can be much easier in the next parliament?
I think my advice simply is going to be that, I mean, there has to be a lot of pragmatism from both sides, Mama V, and that, look, NDC, let the NPP take the speakership position. That's a big prize, if you like. Let us have perhaps maybe the junior prize in terms of leading the committees, or maybe leading some committees in Parliament.
Okay.
And perhaps.
So what happens to the first deputy speaker position?
Sorry?
What happens to the first deputy speaker position?
Well, you know, traditionally, we have two deputy speakers. So the first deputy speaker normally is taken by the party that also holds the speakership. And then the second deputy speaker is taken by the other party because they cannot both belong to the same party. So I guess, again, in the interest of the dialogue and compromise that we are talking about, we go back to default on that one. NDC takes the second deputy speaker, NPP takes the first deputy speaker. And then, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Again, Mama V, I mean, let's say we are just hazarding kind of guesses here.
Absolutely, yes.
The politicians will do their own thing, but I mean, for us, I think from where we sit, we are looking at the interests of the nation. We are looking at avoiding gridlock because we know what gridlock can do, and we don't have that luxury in this country. Particularly now, we are dealing with the hole that has been created by the COVID crisis, as well as other crises. And you know, today we cannot rely on donor partners as has been the case before, because they themselves have their own holes that they need to fill up very, very quickly. So we have to move on very, very quickly as a country.
Great. Mr. Martin Pebu, your connection is back, so you know I can run this by you. We've seen walkouts staged in Parliament from the minority. We've seen them come out of some meetings and they say, well, we will have our say, but they will have their way anyway, so we don't want to be part of this. We've seen it play out several times. Can there be dialogue and compromise? Dr. Draman prefers some suggestions going forward so that the two sides could work together and then there won't be gridlock. That's his major concern. Can we avoid?
Yes, sir. Yeah, avoid, well, to some extent, but to the extent also that this is our first time of confronting this challenge, we are bound to face some of the gridlock he's referred to, because we are now going to gather some experience in it. So we will make mistakes. Yes, from what he's saying, definitely, as for the dialogue and compromises, they are bound to happen, but it's the extent that nobody can at this stage stick out his neck and predict because of our lack of a solid track record in respect of compromises and dialogue. So that's the point. So, I mean, we all agree that on the facts, yes, this is our own version of a hung parliament, but how we will get out of it is what I'm basically saying, that because we are not often open to sharing power, I would rather wait and see how they would get out of it using the principle that they are master of their own procedures. So that is it. Definitely compromises, definitely dialogue. But the extent, we will never know until the parties meet and then fashion out something.
I'm looking at a situation where on the committee setup, or even in the plenary, where one side says one thing, the other side says another thing, and nobody is willing to compromise. Right now, you can't say you're staging a walkout necessarily because you've got equal numbers. How do you push your position through? But I'm also mindful that if there's a speaker coming from one side, then of course they can have their way in the end.
Excellent. That's a problem. So the casting vote and all that. So basically, that's where we are all agreed that yes, they will compromise to some extent, but the extent, just wait. And there's even this other side of it that, okay, practically, Mr. Siama may intentionally cross the carpet, and then his seat will be declared vacant so that they will go back to Formina and do a by-election. Then he comes back this time as a full member of the NPP. So all those things are in the shadow.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be too deliberate? Can't we punish anybody for that? Because that's something, if we can predict that they could do that and they in fact do it, wouldn't that be unconstitutional?
That's interesting, Mama. Looking at the 97 so far, it doesn't appear that there is a punishment. Or as for punishment, it's even out of the question because the Constitution has not mentioned so. And the courts don't fashion out crimes so that they punish. No. If you want to punish, you have to go to Parliament. So like a bill is sent to Parliament for that purpose.
Yeah.
So for now, the classical meaning of punishment is out of the question. But what you mean is maybe a constitutional interpretation to prescribe such conduct. Yes, when it happens, be sure that the way Ghanaians are very vigilant, somebody will go to court for an interpretation that such conduct is prescribed by the Constitution. And that one, we'll leave it for the Supreme Court. So back to the current situation. Let's just see how it pans out.
Okay, yes. All right. And I foresee the person going to court for an interpretation would definitely be you, Mr. Martin Pebu. But thank you so much for your time. I see that you're on the road, so safe journey, and then we will talk again soon. Dr. Draman, you want to comment on the last bit of his submission, possibly Formina seats being declared vacant because Mr. Siama has crossed over and then there's a by-election?
Well, I mean, that's a possibility, interesting one, Mama V, but that might also be very, very risky, particularly given the discerning nature of the Ghanaian voter now. Even though Formina can be described as a stronghold traditionally of the NPP, we might wake up, and if this gamble is played out, maybe the people of Formina can say, look, we are going to vote NDC, and then that changes the dynamics altogether. So there is a possibility there, but there's also a risk, a very high risk. Having said that, Mama V, I think for me, looking at all these things, what what would be, very key in the 8th Parliament, in the event that whichever side elects the Speaker of Parliament, I think what would be key is, the kind of quality that we should be looking out for in the Speaker of the 8th Parliament. One of the most important qualities that I would see that will carry us through, I think, in the 8th Parliament, given all these kind of different unanswered kind of scenarios that we have, would be somebody, apart from everything else, who has the power of persuasion.
Dr. Draman,
that person can persuade both sides to work together.
I've just received a very interesting contribution, and the comments is that the power distribution even within the party is not enough. How can we share with NDC?
Well, yes, it's not enough. We can't have enough of power. But right now, I think we are dealing with the Constitution, and we are dealing with very serious issues. Numbers and is the facts that are going to be speaking now.
Yeah.
So 137, I think those are clear numbers that, well, I don't know how anybody is going to interpret those numbers. Maybe there's some 137 that is more than another 137, maybe.
Well, Dr. Draman, one thing I know, though, if any person is going to help resolve this issue, even at the Parliament level, with the 8th Parliament, that will be you. So all the best. This is too huge and complicated, but I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mamavi.
All right, great. Thanks for your time. Dr. Rashid Draman is Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, helping us with this rather very interesting scenario that's played out, or maybe still playing out in our country. He was on with Mr. Martin Pebu, who is a lawyer. But our show, the AM show, is proudly brought to us by Elegant Homes. Elegant Homes and General Construction Limited is a wholly owned Ghanaian company structured into 3 distinct business units, namely residential, institutional, and commercial, with over 15 years of experience. Our affiliate company, Elegant Homes Product Limited, fabricates and sell high-quality UPVC windows and door profiles from Turkey, plasterboards, cornices, gypsum adhesives, and accessories. Luxury residential apartments or properties in prime areas such as East Legon. You can also, or they can also help you construct properties in any parts of our country. Elegant Homes is now selling 3, 4, 5-bedroom executive detached houses at its gated community, which is called Elegant Courts at Katamanso off the Adenta Dodowa Road in Accra. The project has amenities such as solar street lights, underground sewer system, 24-hour security. They've got tarred roads, constant flow of water, estate management services, and a recreational area as well. We're talking about tennis court, playground, swimming pool, mini shops. So all of it in one location. Clients have the option to choose from a wide range of architectural designs, and they can have it modified for them. Or you can request for a tailor-made service where they can build to suit your individual tastes. The homes are built to the highest standards, and they also can assure you that the finest of materials are used so that the outcome is one of excellence, luxury, beauty, and value for your money. So why don't you look for them? Properties are in East Legon and Elegant Courts at Katamanso. So give them a call, 0244 699. So I'll take the numbers again, 0244 699 053. 0244 699 053 or 024 897 4428. One last number, 057 6597 419, or just visit their website. What's the name of the website again? Just Google Elegant Homes or look at their office at Katamanso. Stay with us. We've got a lot more coming your way here on the AM show.